So we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Will here. Will, you're the president of Fandango. You've been leading NBC Sports Next for quite some time. Pretty innovative in bringing golf to much more mainstream with technology there, and now you're really taking your talents to the full ecosystem of the movie experience. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. It's great to be here with you. And I know I'm probably not going to be as dynamic as somebody like Mr. Wonderful, but I'm happy to be here with you.
I think you'll do well. So, Will, early on, how did your interest in business leadership and wanting to be, in the space that you're in now, how did this kind of passion for leadership begin?
Yeah, I think I would love to say there was like a single point in my life I could point to and say that was the moment, but I think it was just kind of a natural evolution based on like my background and my story and kind of how I got to where I'm at in my professional career. So just, quickly, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. If you think about that time, from a technological revolution standpoint, I was fortunate enough to have good access to computer technology. The internet had become a thing. And when I went to college, I did, like many, kids that age, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I had always had an affinity for sports, for entertainment, for technology, and had explored computer science in college as well.
Uh,
And when I graduated, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity with a startup that was basically helping small and medium-sized businesses like hotels and golf courses and real estate companies transition from an analog way of doing business to utilizing the internet to drive commerce. And so this was early 2000s when you're trying to convince people they needed a website and they needed to understand email marketing, and then that led to us trying to find ways to help them actually conduct commerce online. And I would say that was the impetus for what I would describe as a small or regional version of what ultimately became Golf Now. And so I was fortunate enough to be the sweat equity guy and had two great mentors and business partners, and found myself leading a company at a very young age, managing people twice my age. And I think it was out of necessity that I had to really learn how to deal with a variety of people, motivate them, and I would say work ethic had a lot to do with that. I think I've always demonstrated I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and and do what's necessary. But we created, like I said, I was part of a company that created what was effectively an online travel guide for people that were interested in traveling to golf destinations. That led us to creating, booking engine technology to bring golf course inventory online. And it drew the attention of Comcast and NBC Universal and Golf Channel when they were making the necessary investments that kind of created the foundation of Golf Now. That was back in 2009. So I found myself negotiating the sale of a company to Comcast. And I know one of the things we were talking about is why Comcast and NBC Universal. And, what was obvious to me back then, 2009, was there was, great leadership, at the very top of Comcast. When you think about people like, obviously Brian Roberts is still the chairman. At that time, Steve Burke was, his kind of number two. Jeff Shell was running the Comcast Entertainment Programming Group. There was a guy named Paige Thompson who was the president of Golf Channel. And so the opportunity to get involved in the company at that point was really attractive to me because I'd been in that SMB world, kind of a big fish in a small pond, and this gave me an opportunity to work within a company like Comcast and use the resources and capital of a company like Comcast, but still preserve the kind of the startup and entrepreneurial endeavors that had been so attractive to me up until that point. And that's been the case. And what was pretty interesting is that was about a year before Comcast acquired NBC Universal from General Electric. And then they brought in an executive named Mark Lazarus to run the sports group initially, and he's gone on to he now runs a significant part of NBCU. So the leadership here has been great. I've had an opportunity to report into and learn from a lot of great people. And I would say a lot of people probably don't know the story of our Golf Now business, but it has become the largest golf tech company in the world. When I started, I think I was like employee number 30, and we worked with less than 1,000 golf courses. And if you look at where we are today, we work with over 10,000 golf courses in over 20 countries. And, the business has just been a great success. So, born out of that success about, I would say halfway through my 15-year career with the company, we started looking for other opportunities for the company to invest in, which really led to the formation of NBC Sports Next. And the background there is, again, Golf Now had been successful. We started asking ourselves, what other areas of the sports digital landscape could we explore to help shape out the long-term identity of NBC Sports, really from a digital standpoint. That led us to an exploration of the youth and recreation sports tech space. And we made the acquisition of a market-leading software company based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, called Sports Engine. And so for us, it's that happened back in 2015, 2016. It's also been a great success. We've created a lot of momentum in that space. It's much more competitive than some of the other businesses we're involved in, but also probably has the most opportunity for growth. And then, like I said, if you go back to my childhood, into sports, into movies, into video games, I was always hopeful that I would get an opportunity to get more involved in the entertainment side of what we do. And back in 2022, it had become obvious to me that there were likely going to be some leadership changes inside of the Fandango business unit. And I kind of proactively reached out to one of our executive leaders at the time, a guy named Matt Strauss, who runs Peacock and our overall D2C businesses inside of NBCU, and suggested to him and Mark that I would love an opportunity to get involved if there were ever a chance. And that happened to be the case. And so these last 2 years have been really fascinating for me because I've been able to apply all this, background and the leadership team we've developed inside of the sports tech space to the entertainment portfolio. And a lot of the things that we thought were true proved to be true, meaning, I felt like there were things that we had done within the development of the Golf Now business that would be very applicable to Fandango and online movie ticketing and the relationships we have with the exhibition community. And that's been the case. And so it's been an awesome run, and there's a lot more for us to do, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So, Will, I think one of the reasons that now you're in such an incredible position is because of how innovative you were previously with NBC Sports Next and golf. What innovations now are you most excited about creating with Fandango and with this whole ecosystem that you have with Rotten Tomatoes, movie clips, Voodoo, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if you go back to 2019, so that pre-pandemic, coming off of what was that amazing kind of run of the Marvel comic universe movies, Avengers Endgame becoming the best, call it the best performing box office movie of all time. Then COVID hits, and it dramatically hurts the theatrical exhibition part of the industry. It also proliferates the adoption of streaming, and you also at the same time had all of the major media companies trying to launch their own D2C services to either compete with Netflix or, create more of a direct connection to consumers. And so if you look at where we are today, like things have changed pretty dramatically. But what I'm excited about from an innovation standpoint is when we started digging into like the technology that theaters are using and how they're promoting and marketing themselves online, it's eerily similar to what we encountered in the golf course industry back in, call it the mid to late 2000s. A lot of legacy technology, not a lot of innovation that's happened over the last few years. And so what we're excited about is, we're always going to be a consumer marketplace. So when you think about Rotten Tomatoes, that's the place you go, or that we hope you go to figure out what you want to watch next, or to validate, what it is that you're thinking about watching. Clearly, Fandango is the largest online movie ticketing marketplace in the U.S. But we also want to start helping movie theaters and exhibitors provide a better customer experience through technology. So that's an area we're excited about. And we think some of what we've done in golf, albeit obviously needs to be, customized for this industry, is going to give us an opportunity for new growth. And then you heard what I said, like Fandango today is only a US based company, and we definitely want to extend that out into other countries and international markets. And again, because we have done that with our golf business, we have a great base of infrastructure in some of the countries that would make sense for us to expand into.
So you can just can you use some of that previous infrastructure that you built up to just bring Fandango there? That's what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at, what's interesting today is the customer service team that we originally built out for Golf Now. So if golfers have a question or a problem booking a tee time, changing a tee time, canceling a tee time, they forgot their username or password. Some of that type of customer service is directly applicable to, streaming, to online movie tickets, to whatever it is. So we've got our customer service team actually supports a lot of the D2C businesses inside of the company today. And so, yeah, like, I mean, to your point, the infrastructure is there from a human resource standpoint, from a leadership standpoint to more easily expand into other markets.
Makes sense. So, Will, there's a lot of shift. A lot of people are kind of view the in-person movie experience differently. There was this shift during COVID where it was like, oh, streaming is going to be the future and maybe movie theater chains may go away. How do you see this balance happening now? And what do you think Fandango can do to enhance the movie experience?
Yeah, I think we're always going to be, Fandango for sure is always going to be a theatrical first company. I mean, I'm personally a believer in the experience. I mean, some of my best memories growing up came from somewhat humble beginnings, but, going to the movie theater, I remember, a lot of the movies that I saw with friends, family, et cetera. And I think the bar has certainly been raised for what the experience needs to be to convince somebody to get off their couch to come out, to the theater. So, when I was talking about technology, like we're doing our best to remove every part of friction in that process to make it very easy for people to buy a movie ticket, to buy their concessions before they get there, not have to stand in line, quickly get to their seat and enjoy, all of the great, kind of screen and audio technology that you find in theaters. So I think we're always going to be theatrical first. Fandango is actually a joint venture between Universal and Warner Brothers, and those are two companies that are very focused on leveraging the theatrical business model to create big franchises, big IP, and a lot of people, and I certainly believe this, that the marketing associated with launching a movie in theaters is really what drives the long-term value of that IP. And two of the things I point to, and this has all been information that's publicly disclosed, but I think it is telling. If you go back to the last couple of years of theatrical, two of the biggest movies were Top Gun: Maverick and Oppenheimer. And in both of those movies, because Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan are both they're champions of theatrical business model as we are. They both were adamant that they wanted those movies to be in theaters exclusively for a long time.
Huh.
When you look at when Top Gun: Maverick finally hit Paramount Plus, I think that was Paramount Plus, its largest subscriber acquisition quarter to date, even though the movie had been out for, call it, 200 days. If you look at when Oppenheimer hit Peacock earlier this year, it was quickly the most viewed movie of all time on Peacock. And so, where some people think the theatrical window is unnecessary or is potentially restrictive to getting the content to more consumers quickly, I would argue that both of those movies are great examples of why it's important, because by the time they get to those streaming services, everybody wants to see them or wants to see them again, if they already have.
I wasn't aware of that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of data that would support that. And so if you look at the traditional windowing of a movie, it's changed pretty dramatically since COVID, but there is, there tends to be anywhere from like a 30 to 60 day exclusive theatrical window. And that's where Fandango movie ticketing plays a pivotal role. Then it goes into what a lot of people now call the premium transactional window. So, if you missed it in theaters, you could buy or rent it in your home. And so we used to have a platform called Vudu. We've now changed that to Fandango at Home. We're a big player in that space. And then ultimately it gets to what's called the pay one window. I would think as a consumer, you can think about that as a streaming window. So then it goes to a streaming service. All three of those are very important to the long-term viability of the business. And like, look, I think one of the things that's interesting is if you ask a consumer about anything, do they want it faster and do they want it cheaper? Of course, they're going to say yes. But if you also told the consumer that if we give it to you as fast and as cheap as you want it, the quality is going to go down over time, and then studios are going to quit making, the films that you love, they would say, well, then of course not. I don't want it fast and cheap, So it's what's interesting. It's like, I think there was a point in time where people kind of forgot for a minute that like the investment and the business model exists for a reason, and it's needed to continue to create all this great content that like you and I have been able to watch over the last 2 decades.
Definitely. I mean, you see, like, I've seen even certain directors are frustrated they can't put their film in theaters. It just goes right to streaming. And I get it from a streaming standpoint, but if it's going to even, like, I think that case, if it's going to do much better for streamers down the line, if you have in the box office first, it seems to be such an obvious one now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I won't call out any specifics but there have been some very obvious investments made by streamers in big time movies where it makes absolutely no sense that they're not putting them through a more traditional theatrical window. And so I hope that changes over time. I think the good thing for us is our most important partners, Disney being at the top, Universal, Warner, Sony, Paramount, Lionsgate, etc. They're all extremely focused on theatrical first for movies in particular. And so that's why, I feel like there's certainly like a right sizing of the business that's taking place, but I'm very optimistic, over the long term, over the theatrical experience. And, like COVID hit, that obviously created massive challenges. You had the guild strikes last year that have kind of created some softness in the first part of this year, which was unfortunate because last year we had developed a lot of momentum. But if you look at going back to when Inside Out 2 came out in mid-June, and then you had Despicable Me 4, and then you had Deadpool and Wolverine. I mean, it's been phenomenal the last couple of months. And then the latter part of this year's fantastic. In November, you've got Gladiator 2, Wicked, Moana 2 all coming out. And then next year, the slate looks very robust. So I'm really excited about like the future of the business overall.
Yeah, definitely should be. I mean, I think there's a lot in store. What would you say, Will, are some of the like big goals, aspirational goals that you have now while leading Fandango? Like, where do you mentioned international expansion, you mentioned the kind of connecting the technology experience in movie theaters. Like, what would you say are a couple of the goals that you want to accomplish now?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've been focused on is making Rotten Tomatoes, Fandango, and now Fandango at Home more of like a seamless, interconnected ecosystem. And the idea is that starting at the discovery or the search for what you want to watch next, we want to start the consumer relationship there. We clearly want you to buy movie tickets through us. We want you to buy and rent content in your home through us. And then all of our studio partners also have their own streaming services. So then by the time the content gets there, we also want to be the place to show you, where the content is that you want to watch. I mean, I think that's one of the great ironies of the proliferation of technology and apps and this disintegration of the traditional television bundle is that I would say the consumer experience has never been worse than it is now. Meaning, like, there was a time 10 years ago where if you were a subscriber of a cable bundle, you had one interface. Whether or not you thought it was kludgy, it was where all the content was. And if you look at where we are now, it's like you've got to navigate between 7 different apps. You're bouncing in and out of apps all the time. The consumer experience isn't great. You've now got these companies partnering together to rebundle everything. And so, I think, consumers probably didn't realize how good they had it. And, now we're all kind of dealing with that. So that creates an opportunity for somebody like us where, we're going to help you navigate to the service or the part of the business model where that content is that you want to see.
Mhm. So, well, you're leading something that's pretty important at the company. What goes into like your routine to make sure that you're prepared every day, that you can, handle the different types of pressures or just decision-making aspects of what you're doing, and also balancing the other stuff you have in life?
Well, I mean, I think one is just having like a great leadership team, and great partners inside the company to do things. And I was thinking about this, I think maybe for all but one of my direct reports, I've been working with them for over a decade, and so continuity and leadership is really important. And like when you've been working with a group of people for that long, things become a little bit secondhand in terms of, understanding what's important, what the objectives are that you're trying to accomplish, and having the trust that, they're going to do what they need to do to help the business be successful. I have a wife and three teenagers outside of work, so they're certainly a priority as well. And I think what's great about Comcast and NBC Universal is, they understand that, life and family in many cases can take priority over work. And so it's been great. And I've been fortunate enough in my career, even now. So I essentially report into two different parts of NBC Universal. The head of NBC Sports, a guy named Rick Cordella, and then I was talking about Matt Strauss earlier, who runs D2C and Peacock. They both have teenagers, kids in college, big families. So they get it. And I've been very fortunate, like in really since the day I joined the company, I've always reported into people that were, also looking to balance, family and work life. And so, our company's been very, I would say very easy to work with from that perspective.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I didn't realize the extent of it all. I mean, if you've got those kind of people around you that have their own situations like you, I'm sure it's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you say there's like certain personal goals that you want to accomplish now? Like, what's kind of your next 5 to 10 year horizon? Will, where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about our, I think Comcast as an overall company is well positioned. If you look at some of the big investments that we've made recently, obviously getting, a lot of people like getting Peacock from, essentially zero subscribers when it launched just a few years ago to where it is today has been, an amazing accomplishment that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. If you've been in direct to consumer businesses, you know how hard that is, to do what our company has done in a few years. Theme parks are a huge part of what we do, and those are tied in many ways to our film unit, because a lot of the IP that we create in theatrical finds its way into the theme park business. But our company's building and opening this massive new park in Orlando next year. And then you think about, a rights deal like the NBA that we just did. And so, a long-term deal with, one of the most popular sports brands in the world. And so it feels like, our company is firing on all cylinders. And then when you get down to our business unit, like I'm very excited about some of the things that we're focused on in each of them. They're all different, even though we talked about earlier, there's some commonality between the three. But I'm somebody that likes to have a lot of plates spinning. And so what I've been able to do here is afforded me that luxury. So there's never a dull moment, and there's always new and exciting things that we're focused on.
Well, that's all the questions that I had, Will. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think what you've already done with golf has been pretty transformative to the entire, space in general. It's provided a lot more experiences that people maybe haven't had in that category. I'm sure now that you'll take all that to Fandango and be innovative and change, and hopefully change the experience with technology, make it more seamless, and also clean up the streaming side of things too. It'd be great. But yeah, appreciate you doing this.